think my favourite scene in this film is when they're on the plane to Arizona and Grant is in a dream, and he wakes up in the dream and he sees a velociraptor, and the velociraptor says, "Alan!" Favourite scene in the film. Jurassic Park 3. Jurassic Park 3 was released in 2001, and this time is directed by Joe Johnston, with Spielberg acting as executive producer on this film. After stepping down from the criticism of The Lost World, which he previously directed, instead acted as executive producer on this film, as well as executive producer on Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, the 2 sequels after this film. Anyway, basically, this film has music from Don Davis. Never heard of him? No, I haven't either. And I've never heard of him since. Anyway, the film also stars Sam Neill returning as Dr. Alan Grant, who's in the first Jurassic Park, and he returns from this film. The film also stars William H. Macy, as well as T.A. Leoni, might pronounce that wrong, apologies if I am. Also, the film stars Alessandro, Nivola, Trevor Morgan, apologies if I'm pronouncing any of these names wrong, by the way. As well as that, we also have Dern returning as Ellie Sattler from the first film. Basically, the plot of the film, it's quite a straightforward plot, I'm not gonna lie. As we see at the start of the film, Paul and Amanda Kirby, played by William H. Macy and T.A. Leoni, they lose their son, Eric Kirby, played by Trevor Morgan, on Arizona at the start of the film. That's the opening scene of the film. So Paul Kirby and Amanda Kirby both come up with a plan to go to Arizona to go and get their son back, to go and find their son. In doing so, they want Alan Grant. Alan Grant, once again, played by Sam Neill. Grant even says himself that he will never go to Arizona. You know, Arizona was Jurassic Park, and that's where he previously was, and he didn't actually go to Arizona, because Arizona is the same island from The Lost World, so he's never been there before. So Grant says he will never go to that island. However, after meeting Paul and Amanda Kirby, they give him a fake reason that they want him to come to this island. Basically, they say fly over Arizona for their wedding anniversary, and basically Paul Kirby offers Alan Grant a huge amount of money to go over this island with them, to act as a tour guide while they fly over Arizona for their wedding anniversary. And on the way there, Grant also brings paleontologist friend Billy Brennan, played by Alessandro Nivola. And basically, when they get there, as you might guess, things go wrong. The plane crashes, it's almost trampled by Spinosaurus, and basically they all end up at the island. Grant soon finds out Paul and Amanda Kirby's real plan and their real motive in the film to go and find their son Eric Kirby, and basically, the rest of the film, they're just being chased by dinosaurs. That's basically the rest of the film. And yeah, there's a Spinosaurus that keeps coming in and out of it. Velociraptors are once again in the film. We also see a T-Rex once again, but not that much. Yeah, and they do eventually find Eric Kirby at one stage, and also, it just go on and on with the film. You just keep seeing more dinosaurs. That's basically the film. They just keep being chased by dinosaurs. So the thing that makes this film a bit different from The Lost World and Jurassic Park is, instead of having a T-Rex as a big dinosaur threat, this time they have a Spinosaurus. That's the only difference, really. And also, by the way, you do get to see Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler once again. Alan Grant, like I said, once again played by Sam Neill, which is kind of nice to see. As well as that, we also have Ellie Sattler once again played by Laura Dern. Again, Oscar-winning actress Laura Dern, by the way. Now, I know she won an Oscar before last year, but remember, she definitely won an Oscar last year. But anyway, we get to see Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler once again in the film, and we get to see them at the start of the film. And you know, Ellie comes in and out of it throughout the film. She's not a huge character, but she does have some significance towards the end of the film. But we get to see them at the start of the film, and basically now they're friends, but they're no longer together. If anyone remembers from the first Jurassic Park, those two were together. They were a couple. When we meet them in this film, they're split up. They split up, but they're still friends. Ellie actually has 2 kids with another person that isn't Grant, which is a bit odd because it also changes your perception of their relationship in the first Jurassic Park. Well, I'm going to get onto this more in a bit more detail later in this video because this is an in-depth review in the end. But it changed your perception of Jurassic Park because the whole thing with Alan Grant in Jurassic Park is that he brings out a whole theme of fatherhood in that film. And you know, that whole thing that he's protecting Timmy and Lex in that film. And you know, at the end of the first Jurassic Park, we kind of got the idea that Grant and Ellie were going to start a family. And in this film, she has started a family, just not with Grant. That's a bit odd. I'm going to talk about that again in a bit more detail a bit later. But anyway, I think you may have guessed already that this is my least favourite Jurassic Park film, or Jurassic film, whatever you want to phrase it as, because it's called Jurassic Park 3, that's how I'm going to phrase it. This is my least favourite Jurassic Park film. It is so disappointing. There's no plot to this film, there's no antagonist, and it's just lacking. But there is some small elements of the film I do like, and that's what I'm going to talk about in my in-depth review on this film. And so, without further ado, let's break down this film scene by scene. That's why the openings in the film. This is the worst. This is, in my opinion, the worst opening in the whole Jurassic franchise. Honestly, it looks so fake. When you know Eric Kirby is meant to be like skydiving or something. Not skydiving, but what's that thing called? But you know, you're on the boat, and then you know you've got the wire attached, and you're meant to be flying. And you don't even know what it's called. But yeah, he's meant to be doing that at the start of the film. It just looks so fake. It's not a well shot scene, and also we don't see any dinosaurs in the opening of this film. Don't me wrong, that shouldn't be an issue. Don't me wrong, like we don't see any dinosaurs in the opening of the first Jurassic Park, but we know they're there, we hear them, and we also have that really intense sequence at the opening of Jurassic Park that we know, okay, there's dinosaurs here, we can tell. Also from the amount of people and the way that scene is set up. However, in this film, it's implied that there's a Mosasaurus in the water, but we don't actually see it. And it's just a bit like, oh, yeah, it's just... it wasn't a good opening, and to be honest, that should have set my expectation for the rest of the film, because, yeah. But anyway, we then get the reintroduction to Ellie and Grant. And like I said, I liked seeing them in the film. You know, they're the two characters which, you know, if they're in a Jurassic film, they should be seen together. They really should be. Like, I like that they didn't just bring Grant back, or they didn't just bring Ellie back. I like that they're both in this film. No matter whether they're together or not, in this case that they're not together, if they're in a, you know, Jurassic film together, they should be sharing a scene together. And so I was happy that they were in this film together. However, I was not happy the way they took their relationship in this film. Because it makes the relationship in the first Jurassic Park just look a bit pointless, if being completely honest. The whole thing with, you know, Sam Neill's character, Alan Grant, in the first Jurassic Park, is the whole thing to do with fatherhood. That's one of the huge themes of the whole Jurassic franchise, which is clearly shown through the way he looked after Timmy Alex in the first Jurassic Park film. That is one of the main themes of that film. You know, how you have the whole thing playing God, but at the same time you have the whole thing with fatherhood. Grant, who's not really good with kids, is stuck with kids, you know, he has to protect them at all costs in the first Jurassic Park film. And that's done so fantastically. In this film, it's almost like they just looked at that, just said, oh, what about, you know, if he's not with Ellie anymore? What would it be like now? And to be honest, it doesn't really play much difference or significance at all. It leaves the audience asking the question, why? Why did they do that? They didn't need to do that. They didn't need that to happen in this film. There's no, you know, set reason. It's just kind of in it, and it's kind of asks why. After the whole thing in the first film is, you know, Grant's becoming a father, he's ready to become a father now. That whole idea just doesn't work, it just doesn't play any significance into the plot of this film. It's just, I don't understand why they did that. They didn't need to do that. Anyway, then we get this scene. Grant is talking about how he will never go to Isla, you know, Isla, he's never been there. That's the island from the Lost World, so he hasn't been there. He's only been to Isla Nivola, the island from the first Jurassic Park. So he's never been to Isla. No one will ever get him there. He even says in the film, you know, nothing will ever get me to the island. It's something like that in the film. And then 5 minutes later, he's going to the island. That's not good writing. It rushes, and I'm going to talk about that again in a bit later in the video, because an hour and a half, that's too short for a Jurassic Park film. This film's an hour and a half. I'm going to talk about that a bit later. But then 5 minutes later, Grant's going to the island, and you know how he's convinced to go to the island? Money. That's like the least creative plotline ever. And also, I don't believe that the same Grant who was at Eisenhower, you know, at Jurassic Park in the first film, would go back to another island full of dinosaurs. I don't believe that. It's just lazy writing. I don't feel that the writers of this film really understood the legacy characters from the first film. I don't believe that this person, you know, he was at Jurassic Park, who witnessed people get eaten by dinosaurs at Jurassic Park, would go to Isla, the island which is said to be more dangerous than Argentina. It's just a bit like, really? It's not that clever. Anyway, at the same time, we are also introduced to Billy Brennan. Billy Brennan, played by Alessandro in the film. I might pronounce his name wrong, apologies if I am. Basically, he's like a Grant, but younger and more fitter. And that's a bit of a bland character, I must admit. He's introduced a similar way that Grant was introduced in the first Jurassic Park, although not nearly as interesting. He's a bland character, and I wasn't really interested in his introduction. But anyway, Grant ends up going on the plane to Arizona, and he brings his paleontologist friend along with him, Billy Brennan. Then we get my favourite scene of the entire film. Grant is asleep on the plane, he wakes up in the middle of his dream, he sees the Velociraptor. Alan! Oh, God. Boom. Is that seriously where the Jurassic Park films got to by this point? It generally felt like a parody of Jurassic Park when I watched that scene. It generally felt like, oh my god, this feels like a parody. That feels like they're making fun of the first two. What? This was meant to be the third film in just a Jurassic Park trilogy. For a long time, this was the third film in Jurassic Park trilogy. Jurassic World didn't come out until 14 years after this film, and then we just get this random scene that was almost a parody of all the Jurassic Park films before, and it's just been like, really? Whenever I watch this film, I mean, whenever I get to that scene, I just laugh my head off. Not for the, you know, intentional reason, because that's a funny scene. The reason that it's so bad. Why did they do that in this film? Things like that, which makes me think Jurassic Park 3 was, yeah. They didn't really know what they were doing with this film. But anyway, then they get to the island, and surprise, surprise, plane crashes. Didn't see that come, you know. Out on the plane, flying over Arizona. What's going to happen to them? Oh, the plane crashes. Didn't see that coming at all. And basically, they're almost trampled to death by Spinosaurus, and the whole plane sequence isn't terrible. But I could easily tell when the Spinosaurus changed from CGI to animatronics. The animatronics in the film aren't bad. I think the whole Spinosaurus design, first with the whole animatronic Spinosaurus, I don't have anything wrong with the people who actually created that whole animatronic. I saw some of the behind the scenes photos from this film, and honestly, the animatronics are huge. So whoever created those animatronics, congratulations, they're absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, though, Joe Johnston did an absolutely terrible job directing them, because honestly, I could easily tell when the Spinosaurus changed from animatronics to CGI. And that's the thing, with The Lost World and, you know, Jurassic Park, the two previous sequels before this, I can never tell. Spielberg did that whole transition so seamlessly almost all the time in those films. But in this film, in the first dinosaur scene, it became increasingly and blaringly obvious to the point now it's just really, it wasn't really well directed, that whole scene as well. That whole scene, when we first introduced the Spinosaurus, wasn't really that directed, like the whole Spinosaurus animatronic, it just keeps swiveling the camera around it. Then though, we get the fight between the Spinosaurus and the T-Rex. And this should be so good. This should have been so good. They should have delivered this really, really well. This is the first time you see the T-Rex in the film. Oh my god, this should be a really big and really exciting sequence between the fight between the two dinosaurs. Instead, it lasts about 2 minutes. Not even that. It doesn't last long. It's such an anticlimactic fight. If Spielberg directed this film, I can guarantee now the fight would have been longer and so much more exciting. We'll have some excellent John Williams music on in the background as well. The fight would have been, much more exciting. And I'm not saying the Spinosaurus wouldn't have still won, because I think the Spinosaurus would have still won. I think that's the whole idea of this, this film, that the Spinosaurus is the big dinosaur for him. But I don't think the T-Rex would have given up so easily. The T-Rex was given up so easily in this fight between the two dinosaurs, and it's just a bit like, really? It's a really, really short fight. And then you get the scene where Paul Kirby tells Grant about his real plan to go and get their son Eric Kirby back on this island. And that scene's fine, but then you get a bit of an unnecessary twist when Paul and Amanda Kirby split up. It almost felt like a bit of a romantic comedy here. Honestly, some of the lines in the film, which I'm going to quote later in this video, some of the lines in this film just between those two characters honestly really felt like a romantic comedy. Like, the whole twist of them two being split up though, it's so unnecessary. It's almost like you wonder where it's going to go by the end of the film. Can't guess that. It's so unnecessary. I don't think it was needed. I get what he was trying to do. It's just trying to add to the characterization of these characters. If you take the fact that they're trying to find their son, these characters become increasingly bland and boring. And the fact is, they try to add, a bit more interest with their characters, but it just doesn't work, and it just feels unnecessary in the overall grand scheme of things in this film. I hate when films do that. I hate when films just retort back, to a simple, easy plot line. And the thing is, this film does it so much. The whole money thing with Grant and this whole, trying to get the son back. It's just easy, simple, generic plot line. Does this film really need to do that? And also the whole other thing with their characters, Amanda Kirby and Paul Kirby trying to find their son. The whole storyline there goes away really, really quickly, because once they do get on Arizona, they find Eric Kirby, their son, pretty quickly, about 10 to 15 minutes into getting on Arizona. When they do find their son, all the slightly interested, I mean slightly interested because not really that interested, all that, slight interest with, with their characters suddenly just goes away. I just lost complete interest in their characters when they found their son, because I knew exactly where the film was going with their characters, exactly where their character storylines were going as soon as they found their son, and coincidentally, they went there. But anyway, then you get this whole raptor egg scene where Billy Brennan picks up these raptor eggs. I don't understand why they did that. I don't. It's just almost like a plot device to get the Velociraptors back later. That's fine, but it's lazy writing. It's just like, we need a reason for the Velociraptors to come in and out of this film. How are we going to do that? What about if Billy Brennan, a paleontologist, I mean, come on, Billy Wright really picks up raptor eggs, takes them from himself, and that's why the Velociraptors have to follow these characters around for the rest of the film. That's not good writing. It's a plot device, but a not very good one. It's a reason to get the raptors back, but a not very good reason to. Anyway, and then you get the first scene with Velociraptors in the film. And it's not a bad scene, it's a bit entertaining, I must admit. I didn't mind the Velociraptors in the film, but I just became increasingly annoyed with Amanda Kirby in the scene. She just kept screaming and making the wrong decision, and it's just like, really? Do you not know Velociraptors? Like, it's just, she's so annoying in this film. Nothing against T.A. Leoni, the actress who plays her, if that's how I pronounce her name. Nothing wrong with her acting in this film. The character's so annoying. Anyway, then you get the introduction to Eric Kirby, who manages to save Grant almost being eaten by Velociraptors. And Eric Kirby's actually not a bad character in this film. He's actually quite interesting. He's had a bit of characterization with him. He survived on Arizona for like a couple of months now, all by himself. That's all quite interesting, and I didn't actually mind him in this film. Then you get this really weird scene where he's explaining how he lives and everything, and he's just got this beaker full of T-Rex pee. Why? Is that meant to be a joke? It's, yeah. And then, do you know what that scene did though? That little moment with the T-Rex pee did? You know what that reminded me of? The fact that the T-Rex is dead in this film. What they could have done was it managed to get away from Spinosaurus, so it came back in the film, and they've got a much more exciting fight. That's what they should have done, and it would have worked so much better in the third act of the film. Instead, the T-Rex dies, and we just get a little reminder here that T-Rex is dead, and this is what this film's reducing it to. T-Rex pee. Then we get the scene where Eric Kirby reunites with his parents. And then all the, somewhat interesting characterization with all those characters, Amanda Kirby, Paul Kirby, and Eric Kirby, goes away. literally in the scene when they reunite. And also, the reunion was done way too quick. Like, they could have had that done for way towards the end of the film, and, you know, like, dinosaurs were literally stopping those, you know, those characters from reuniting. Instead, they have a really easy reunion, and there's a gate separating them, but they are pretty much reunited. And then the Spinosaurus, which, by the way, this is actually another fantastic moment. Spinosaurus quite literally comes out of nowhere, and it's just standing there watching them. It's not eating them, it's just standing there watching them. And then, so, they're running again, they're running away from the Spinosaurus, and they're running along this, you know, tall gate. It's a tall Jurassic Park gate. You've seen one of the Jurassic Park films before. And basically, they're running along this gate, and this happens to be this small hole that Eric, Kirby, and Grant can just manage to fit through, that just managed to save them from the big Spinosaurus. And it's just a bit like, mainly just happens to be that hole there. Like, first of all, where did the Spinosaurus come from in the scene? And second of all, where did that hole come from? Almost like Joe Johnston sat down in the end. It's just like, we need a Spinosaurus scene here, don't you think? Yeah, let's just bring it in out of nowhere. Yeah, no, it just doesn't work. But anyway, then Grant finds out that Billy Brennan took the Velociraptor egg, and at this point he hadn't found out. And then Billy Brennan gets all like upset and a bit like, or sulky, like, because Grant had to go with him. I mean, I would have a go at him if he had Velociraptor. You would know. Like, I thought Billy Brennan was good friends with Grant. Grant must have told him stories from, you know, Jurassic Park with all the Velociraptors. You know, he didn't have fun times with Velociraptors in Jurassic Park. And, you know, isn't Billy Brennan meant to be a paleontologist? Why did he pick up Velociraptor eggs? Again, it's not clear. And then he just comes up so sulky because Grant's just like, you're no better than the people that made this place. And it's just like, well, but then Billy Brennan goes all sulky. And then we get the pterodon scene, and then Billy, because he's all sulky, he basically almost ends up killing himself from the pterodons. In fact, we do actually think he's died because, you know, he's also wants to prove himself to Grant. So he gets his parachute out, you know, that he somehow you found earlier on the film in the end, which, yeah, and then he gets his parachute out and you know, he gets killed by the pterodons. At least you'd think he did. He didn't. And it's just a bit like, did you really need to do that? You did really need to prove yourself? He was really sulking and so he proved himself to Grant. It's just a bit like, and the whole pterodon scene isn't a terrible scene. You know, the pterodactyl scene isn't a terrible scene as well. You know, it's entertaining. It's something we hadn't seen in the Jurassic franchise before this. But there's this like Grant, Paul Kirby and Amanda Kirby are all in this, you know, like, cage together. And literally, the pterodon is just walking on the cage up to them. It's just not really doing anything. The pterodon just keeps walking up to them. And it keeps, like, squawking, and it's just not doing anything at all. It's just, I thought it was meant to be a dinosaur, and it's not doing anything to them. But anyway, like I said, the pterodon scene isn't awful, but then, when you watch Jurassic World after this, it's so much better. Yeah, the pterodon scene isn't awful, it's just not as entertaining as it could be. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, then you get this really outplaced scene with the Brachiosaurus. It's a scene which is plays completely on homage to the first Jurassic Park. And the first time you see the Brachiosaurus in the first Jurassic Park, you know, that's a really good scene. You know, welcome to Jurassic Park. And you know, things like, you know, that scene in the first Jurassic Park is one of the most famous scenes of the whole of the Jurassic franchise. One of the most famous scenes in film history when you first see the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park in that film. And here they're just trying to play homage to that film. It was almost like the filmmakers were like, you remember the first Jurassic Park? We're trying to recreate that magic here. The scene just felt so out of place. You know, we just had this pterodon scene, we're about to have this Spinosaurus scene, and here we're going to throw in a scene, a happy scene, you know, with the Brachiosaurus. It just feels so out of place, and it's not a bad idea for a scene, I must admit. If it happened early on in the film, maybe I would have liked it a bit more, but the fact is it happens here after, you know, pterodons are just trying to kill them, and a Spinosaurus is just about to kill them, and now they're really happy to see Brachiosaurus. Then we just get, you know, you know, the main Jurassic Park theme. It's like a worse version of that scene from the first Jurassic Park. That's what it is. It's like the filmmakers were just like, you remember the scene from the first Jurassic Park? We're trying to recreate that magic. And then we get the final fight with the Spinosaurus in this film. And it's not a bad final fight, I must admit, but it's nothing compared to the final, you know, T-Rex fights in the first two films. You know, even the whole San Diego sequence in The Lost World, which if you watched my Lost World review, you know, I wasn't a huge fan of that whole T-Rex San Diego sequence in that film. Even that whole San Diego sequence in The Lost World was more entertaining than the whole Spinosaurus scene towards the end of this film. It's not that well done. And then you get this really cringy line, like, when Amanda Kirby's like, Paul, you can't leave me like this, and then Paul's like, I'm not going anywhere. It's lines like that in this film which remind me of romantic comedies. Ooh, it's just... Then you get this Velociraptor scene, then you get the final Velociraptor scene of the whole film. And it's so anticlimactic. You know, the Velociraptors want the Raptor eggs back, and that's you know, there's an actual point to that. And I thought there's going to be a whole big fight between the Velociraptors and maybe Eric Kirby, who's been on his arm for a while. But instead, we just get this really anticlimactic scene where the Velociraptors don't eat any of the characters here. All they do is just sniff Amanda Kirby. Oh my god, they don't even fight. Grant can somehow sound a perfect raptor roar. It's just like, really? Okay. And then they get away from the Velociraptors, they see the army arrives. That's all thanks to Grant, because he was trying to call Ellie in the film, and Ellie was really worried about it, and so she called in the whole army to go and save them on Isis On. I realised something when I got to this scene in the film. Grant plays little to no significance in the role of this film. Like, I love Sam Neill as Alan Grant in this film. I love when he person in the films. I really like Alan Grant in the film. In fact, my favourite character in the film, but it's probably because he was in the first Jurassic Park. I really like Sam Neill as Alan Grant in this film, yet again. His character plays little to no significance in this film. It's almost like they literally just brought in Alan Grant for the sake of having him in this film, to bring in that classic Jurassic Park audience. Fans of the franchise that didn't like The Lost World, why do we bring Grant back instead of Malcolm in this film? That's not a bad idea, but Grant doesn't play much of a role in this film. Apart from the whole army stuff at the end, he doesn't play much of a role. He's just on the island with, walking around the island with it. He's never been to this island before. You know, if this was Isaac Newton, maybe it'd be a bit different. You know, Grant actually got somewhat of a role to play here. But he doesn't, because he's never been to Isaac Newton before. I really like Alan Grant. I really like Sam Neill playing Alan Grant. But what was the point of having him in this film, other than the whole army stuff, which is this one big huge cop-out at the end of this film? It's disappointing that, because he played such a vital role in the first Jurassic Park. In fact, one of the huge main themes of that film, the whole thing to do with fatherhood, was through his character. And now his character in this film is literally reduced to the cop-out towards the end of the film. I liked Sam Neill's performance in this film, but Grant didn't play much significance at all. Then you have the final army scene in this film, and somehow Billy Brennan has only made it on the helicopter before these people. Somehow these people all get on, you know, Amanda Kirby, Paul Kirby, Eric Kirby, and Grant all get on this one helicopter. There's a good lot of helicopters here, by the way. They all get on this one helicopter, and Billy Brennan just happens to be on this one helicopter, and somehow he's already survived. They already managed to pick him up. How? We didn't have the helicopters going to the island already. You know, they came from the opposite end of the island where the pterodon scene all happened. How does that work? But anyway, then everyone seems way too happy on this helicopter on the way back. If you look at the end of the first Jurassic Park, everyone's really sad and really, you know, silent because, you know, 3 people have died at the end of the first Jurassic Park through dinosaurs. And if you look at, you know, the scene where the helicopter's leaving Isis On in The Lost World, everyone's sad because they've lost quite a lot of people, you know, on Isis On in that film. But here, everyone seems really happy. You know, they've lost 3 people, but you know what? The Kirby family's getting back together, which leads me to another, you know, romantic comedy line in this film where, you know, where Eric Kirby's like, where are we going now, Dad? And then, and then Paul Kirby turns to Amanda Kirby and goes, home. There's a nice heart there, but honestly, it just produces some of the most best, terrible pieces of dialogue in this film. It's just a bit like, really? But anyway, then the characters all see the pterodons again, and they're all really, really happy to see the pterodons again. They're all like, oh, wow, look at the pterodactyls, or the pterodons, whichever way you want to call it. Oh, wow, look at them. And it's just like, seriously, 20 minutes ago, they were trying to kill you. The same pterodactyls and pterodons that were trying to kill you 20 minutes ago, and you're really happy to see them? Yeah. And then you get the final shot of the film, which I think is absolutely brilliant. You just see the pterodactyls flying in the sky. The pterodactyls are all CGI here. By the way, it's still blaringly obvious CGI. One of the pterodactyls, if you look closely, it looks like one of them actually looked back to the camera. It looks like one of the pterodactyls was this, like, it literally looks like that. It's just a bit like, seriously? They CGI'd these dinosaurs and they... What? This film is brilliant. It's by far my favourite Jurassic Park film yet. I honestly rate this film a 10 out of 10. No, it's so bad. The CGI in this film has not aged well. It honestly looks like computer game graphics. Honestly, the dinosaurs in the film do not look real. It looks so different and it looks so fake compared to The Lost World and Jurassic Park. You know, say what you will about The Lost World. If you don't like that film, fair enough. I do understand why. I personally think that film's great. If you don't like the film, fair enough. You cannot deny in that film that they did another fantastic, superb job with the CGI in that film. There are so many moments in that film where the dinosaurs chase from animatronics to CGI, and yet again, I can't tell. And that's the same with Jurassic Park. But the CGI in Jurassic Park 3 has aged so badly. I can still watch Jurassic Park and Lost World and still, you know, there'll be the scenes where the dinosaurs are CGI. I won't be able to know it because the CGI is that well done. I watched Jurassic Park most recently on a cinema screen and I couldn't tell. I watched Jurassic Park 3 on my TV and I could easily tell that these dinosaurs were CGI. Like, I'm not saying the people who made this film did a terrible job of making the animatronics of the film, because I've seen behind the scenes photos of them making these, you know, big models, these big animatronics for the original 3 Jurassic Park films, and they're incredibly impressive, and there's a lot of effort clearly put into making those dinosaurs. But unfortunately, the filmmaking of this film is terrible. It makes these dinosaurs look unrealistic, and honestly, even when the animatronics are used, I can clearly tell when they change from CGI to animatronics. It's like that whole Spinosaurus scene which you talked about early on in this video. You know, first scene which you see the Spinosaurus in, that should be the scene where you're like, oh my god, wow, a Spinosaurus, we haven't seen that yet in this Jurassic franchise. Wow, oh my god, I appreciate that whole idea of having a Spinosaurus in the film. Had T-Rexes for previous two films, let's spice it up a bit, let's do a Spinosaurus, something we haven't seen yet. That's another big dinosaur, and that's great. But it just became glaringly obvious when the Spinosaurus changed from CGI to animatronic. That annoys me. It does, because it should have been better. It should have been better. Lost World was 4 years before this, and Jurassic Park was 8 years before this. And the CGI in those films is better. And the music from Don Davis in the film, by the way, heard of him before? No, I haven't, and I'm a huge fan of film music, and he's done nothing since. But the music from Don Davis in the film, it's not terrible, but it's just reused and recycled John Williams' Jurassic Park theme. Bum 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 da 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 bum bum da 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 bum bum. And they're fantastic pieces of music. Yeah, some of the most famous pieces of music of all time. But there's no new themes in this film, or if there was, they weren't noticeable and they weren't memorable. Again, say what you will about the Lost World, but John Williams, who composed music for the first Jurassic Park and composed music for the Lost World, even created his own new theme for that film. He created his own new theme for the Lost World. Bum 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 da dum bum bum bum. It was a new theme for that film, and that was really, really good. But in this film, with a new composer, there isn't any new theme. You know, it's almost like he was so fascinated with John Williams that he didn't create any new themes. And then Michael Giacchino, who went on to go and do the music for the next two Jurassic World films after this, even he created his own new themes in those films, with still using the main Jurassic Park themes in those films. In this film, it's just there's too many use of Jurassic Park theme, and it doesn't work. And the music, it's not nearly as good as John Williams' scores for the previous two films. No, I'm comparing, you know, this score to John Williams' scores. You know, they're some of the most, you know, amazing scores of all time. Whenever you watch a score for a film, it's hugely famous no matter what. But still, here, it could have done a better job, that's all I'm saying. So, you might have guessed already that Jurassic Park 3 is my least favourite of the whole Jurassic franchise. The characters are so uninteresting. They're not interesting characters, they're so bland and just so boring. Like, even Grant in this film, there's not really much to it. Why do they have Grant in this film, if not to give him some significance in the plot? Like, I understand why they have him, to bring in that Jurassic Park audit, like we've said in this review. He just didn't play any significance in the film. It's just disappointing, if I'm being completely honest. Everyone was way too happy at the end of this film. 3 people have died! What? It's just, So all in all, I think you can tell that Jurassic Park 3 just annoys me. Honestly, sometimes I will just laugh at this film. But, as a film, this is awful. It's like a Jurassic Park parody. You know, this film's an hour and a half. It's like 90 minutes, not even that, I don't think. That's not great. You know, if you have the Jurassic film, it needs to be over an hour and a half. This film is so rushed. Everything is so badly paced. This film is so badly made. It's a huge step down from Lost World, and it's an even huger step down from Jurassic Park. And ultimately, this film's really, really disappointing. And I hate to say that. This should have been a fitting end to a Jurassic Park trilogy. Instead, people were demanding a 4th Jurassic Park film after this, because this one was so bad. And I completely agree why. All in all, much to no surprise, I don't know this film. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10. There are some small entertaining sequences and some ideas which hadn't been done in the Jurassic franchise, but still, it could have been so much better. It should have been so much better. And unfortunately, it wasn't. And also, at an hour and a half, this is way too rushed. All in all, yeah, I don't like this film. I'm going to give Jurassic Park 3 a 2 out of 10. Anyway guys, what do you think of Jurassic Park 3? Do you love it to hate it, or have you just not watched it? And if not, why not? Please do comment below and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And just to say once again, I'm still watching and reviewing the Jurassic films right now. So look forward to my review of Jurassic World coming very soon on this channel. Anyway guys, thank you as always for watching, and if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like and subscribe on this video, and look forward to many more both film and TVs coming very soon on this channel. See you guys again soon, but bye for now. Bye!